Welcome back to another episode of Pour Your Own Problems. This is your host, Mercy. And amongst other things that we have seen throughout Minnesota, and the fraud just ran rapid, now we're starting to see activity that keeps compiling up on Representative Ilhan Omar. Let's review what Vice President J.D. Vance had to say about Ilhan Omar committing immigration fraud. Let's go.
Hey, boss, he ain't working.
Possible?
Well, Dana, it is possible, and it's becoming a much more frequent event to see DOJ officials securing through courts the denaturalization of people who obtained U.S. citizenship through fraud or obtained citizenship by committing other crimes.
How difficult is it to secure denaturalization? Because I know in Congress, there's been legislation like the Scam Act introduced to make it, but it's not easy to secure denaturalization. Walk us through that.
Yeah, it's not, Lisa. And thank you for bringing that up because, we would love to get some tougher laws from Congress on this. We've been talking to some members, but we can do it. These people, again, went to prison. One of them we're looking at now lied about when they got their citizenship, their naturalization, they lied about their marriage to get in this country. You can't do that. Being a citizen in our country is a privilege. It's not a right. And Donald Trump is going to have everyone in this country who deserves to be here, who's a citizen. And sure, it could be faster, it could be easier, but I think we're moving at lightning speed, given what we're up against.
I'm thinking about the Old Dominion shooter.
And I firmly agree with Pam Bundy. Like, it's a privilege to be here. If you were born here, hey, that's a different subject matter, right? But if you weren't and you got the opportunity to become a citizen, it's still a privilege because you didn't have to have it. It's no different from people that are skipping the line for immigrants that have paid their way, did their due diligence. So it's a slap in the face when you don't assimilate, when you say death to America, when you so against what America is and has been. How can I even fathom that you're patriotic? I see so many people, they're patriotic about their home countries that they came from, but you live here in the U.S. Make it make sense. So I do feel that, especially at a criminal level, your citizenship should be revoked, in my opinion. But hey, let's keep it going.
Correct.
The Leering Center is not an actual daycare.
No.
The Leering Center was fraud, right? And we've seen the hospice fraud in California. And so I think it's been demonstrated that this is a problem. What people need to see now is like arrests, right?
100%.
Deportations. They need to see that the federal government, the gears of justice grind against these people and they're not allowed to just continue.
Yes. So let me give you an example, something I just talked about upstairs, but I think it's worth reiterating for your viewers. So you take a program that exists within Medicaid to help autistic children get the resources that they need. So you have a Somalian fraudster in suburban Minneapolis who says that they have 3 kids who are autistic, and maybe they don't even have 3 kids, and they certainly don't have 3 kids who are autistic. So it takes money away from the American citizens who need these services. It defrauds the taxpayer, and you're absolutely right that the thing that we need to do is get real justice. So, something I learned just in the past couple of months, I had no idea that we do not prosecute fraud in this country if it's under $1.5 million per year.
That's terrible. That's terrible, and Congress needs to change that. That means it doesn't even come up on their radar, and then so many people are able to commit fraud without even it ever being challenged. Imagine I'm just going to commit fraud, Medicaid fraud or whatever, and get these kickbacks wherever it may be, and I'm doing it 20K here, 20K there, 50 here, 50 there. I'm only staying at a lower threshold where the federal government is not monitoring it. I think that's a problem, and it needs to be reconciled immediately.
Okay? So think about that. Think of all the people who are $1.5 million a year. This is not chump change. That is meaningful money. And by the way, sometimes by prosecuting the lower level people, you get to the higher level people who are collecting, who have sort of the conspiracy to commit fraud against the American people. So one of the things that we're trying to do with this task force is commit the Department of Justice to investigating all fraud and actually going after the people who are doing it at the small scale of $1.4 million, but also actually looking at the big conspiracies that are out there. Because, Benny, I don't know about you, but I do not believe that what happened with the Somalian immigrant community in Minnesota, I don't think that happens without some cooperation from politicians, without other people looking the other way, or maybe even being in the fraud themselves.
I'm not going to sit here and believe that you don't have people that are not complicit, especially people like Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, and their AG. I'm not going to buy that you didn't look away, especially Ilhan Omar, considering that she was in close proximity with like Feeding Our Future, going to events and things of that nature. Like, you're not going to tell me that it was nothing going on here that didn't tickle your ears or that didn't perk your antennas to like question what people were actually doing and committing. You're not gonna make me think different in that. But let's keep it going.
Going back for probably 30 or 40 years, is that you've never had an administration that has really taken this seriously until the president put us really from day one of the Trump administration, who said, we have to take the fraud issue seriously. And a lot of the anti-fraud protections that existed in our government for a very long time were actually turned off by the Biden administration. So we think fraud has been a problem for a long time. It became a massive, massive problem under the Biden administration. We're going to do a number of things. First of all, we're going to turn back on those anti-fraud protections so that all of these cabinet officials are looking at what's going on and focusing on it. The second thing is that we're going to take a whole of government approach. So much of what's going to make the anti-fraud task force work is that we're communicating across different departments. So when Bobby Kennedy is talking to Scott Bessent about things that he's seeing in Medicare and Medicaid, when Scott is seeing things at Treasury, when Brooke is seeing things at Agriculture, when Scott is seeing things at Housing and Urban Development, what we're going to actually do is force the bureaucracy to take this seriously and work together as political principles to make sure that we stop allowing fraudsters to steal the American people's money. And that brings me to my final point before I'll kick it over to Andrew, who is leading this anti-fraud task force. This is not just theft of the American people's money. This is also theft of critical services that the American people rely on. Some of you have heard me tell this story before, but I think that the autism scam that we've seen in the Somalian parts of Minnesota really illustrates well what's been going on across whole layers of our government. So you have a program set up under Medicaid to help autistic children and their families get the resources that they need, because of course we know that when you have a kid who's on the spectrum, it requires a little bit more help, a little bit more services. And so the government, enforcing the mandate from the American people to be kind and compassionate to our citizens, has set up this program to help families who are dealing with these particular struggles. Now, what we've seen is Somali fraudsters at an industrial scale taking advantage of that program to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. And there are two separate tragedies there. The first tragedy is that you have people who pay into the federal government, who pay into the IRS, who pay their taxes expecting that those taxes will go to help their fellow citizens. And it's not going there. It's going to help fraudsters. That's tragedy number one. And the more important tragedy is that you have families who need these services who are unable to get them because people are getting rich off of fraud schemes instead of making sure that autistic children and their families get access to these resources. And unfortunately, that story, while it's very concrete and very obvious what we're seeing in Minneapolis, it is replayed again and again and again across many states and across many different programs. It has to stop. The President of the United States has ordered us to stop it, and that's what this task force is going to do. So without further ado, I'll kick it over to Andy.
And so there you have it. It's like, and everything that he stated that they're implementing is sounds common sense, right? You would think that the government would be doing this already, but in fact they're not. And so coming up with this task force, we're already bloated. We're already in so much debt, trillions and trillions of dollars of debt, and fraud has been running rapid. I can tell you, I just did a video of a family in North Carolina that was simply getting Medicaid. See, you can get somebody's Medicaid information or Medicare information, whichever, or, and that is the new credit card. That is the new scheme. That is the new credit card. So what they would do was they would bring in these people that are on drugs, get their Medicaid information, and give them back money and gift cards, and then charge the federal government and receive that kickback as if they have did work to help these individuals get off drugs. Crazy, right? Go back and review that video. It's a family in North Carolina, a son, a mother, a aunt, and a grandmother that was committing fraud. But let's move it along.
And obviously, Ilhan Omar, the president and the White House have been out saying that she married her brother, that there is immigration fraud going on here. These are deportable denaturalization offenses. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so we actually think that Ilhan Omar definitely committed immigration fraud against the United States of America. And I talked to Stephen Miller about this actually recently. We're trying to look at what the remedies are. That's the thing that we're trying to figure out, is what are the legal remedies now that we know that she's committed immigration fraud? How do you go after her? How do you investigate her? How do you actually do the thing? How do you build the case necessary to get some justice for the American people? There's a related issue, Benny, which is she has been at the center of a lot of the worst fraudsters in the Somalian community. So do I know that Ilhan Omar was aware that the Quality Leering Center was defrauding the American people? I'm not certain of it, but we at least need to investigate it, because if people can commit wrongdoing without even the fear that they're going to be found out, that's a fundamental problem. So I'm worried about the immigration fraud. I'm also worried about, what did Ilhan Omar know about what was happening in the Somali community, and why was nobody looking into it until, frankly, Donald Trump came along?
And so you have to take into account, like, everyone is innocent till proven guilty. And that's essentially what JD Vance is saying. Like, we suspect and we can confirm that, yes, she did that, but can we charge her in any type of way? What are the remedies that we can do? And so this is where we're at with Ilhan Omar. And now let's play a video of her actual country requesting that we send her back. Let's review. And so it says in this article on Fox News, African nation calls for Ilhan Omar to be extradited after Vance's fraud claim. An African nation is calling for Representative Ilhan Omar of Democrat Minnesota to be extradited after Vice President JD Vance claimed during an interview that the lawmaker committed immigration fraud. The Republic of Somaliland, a particular recognized state in the Horn of Africa, reacted in a post on X to claim that Vance made in a podcast interview with conservative commentator Benny Johnson. Deportation, please. You're just sending the princess back to her kingdom. Extradition, says the word the post reads. Wow, that's big. Like, that's big. What do y'all think? What do y'all think that's gonna happen to Ilhan Omar? Like, I also seen the post where she's giving what JD Vance said. I'm also seeing that she's giving pushback, but is it true? And so we got to find out. We got to get to the bottom of this, because this has been this rumor that she hasn't really denied about her marrying her brother and to help him become a citizen of the United States has not really, she hasn't really came out and denied it flat out. And it's been out for a few years now. It's just now percolating up again because of the Minnesota fraud and some of her tone and rhetoric and hate when it comes down to America and when it comes down to white men, even though she's married to a white man. It's just crazy. It's all over the place. So I think it's something to be looked at and looked into. And if she did, in fact, commit immigration fraud and marry her brother just to get him citizenship, I think that she should be her citizenship should be revoked, and she should be kicked back to go back to Somaliland, in my opinion. But hey, sippers, sippets, y'all tell me how y'all feel in the comments. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It's your boy Mercy. I'm out.